March 8th regular board meeting of the Pullman School District Board of Directors, and we will begin the meeting with our flag salute, which is being led by our student, Robbie Allen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we look at approval of the agenda. Superintendent Maxwell, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to call to your attention two changes to the agenda. One is in under number 10, executive or closed session. We've added C, collective bargaining, to the executive closed session. That's the first change. The second change was there was a last-minute consent agenda item, addendum, noted as an addendum, page 62. And I also want to report that that was added at the last minute, and there was a error, and I've passed each of you a hard copy of the corrected wording for that addendum. Okay. Those are the only two changes.
Madam Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as it was amended and presented.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Next, we have a section for visitors. This part of the agenda is for anyone wishing to speak before the board, either as an individual or a member of a group. Visitors addressing the board will go to the microphone and state their name and address prior to presenting their information. Visitors are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes. The board will listen but will not discuss the topic at this time. The board may consider moving the topic presented to a future meeting date as a discussion item. Are there any visitors who wish to address the board? Seeing none, we will move on to reports, correspondence, and program, beginning with our ASB report.
All right. Hello, my name is Robbie Allen. I'm the executive president of the ASB. And what we have to report is a lot of it's just kind of background or grunt work. And so what that means is we're working on ratifying the Constitution. So currently the Constitution is, I think, around 8 pages or so, and it lacks a lot of detail in terms of duties and processes of which the ASB should go through, I guess. And so what we're hoping to do with this new Constitution is to define our duties for each position. So we'll have specific bullet points that we'll want them to do throughout the year. And then we have, we've kind of been having a problem with people showing up to meetings or doing their duties. And so we've added in a process where there is punishment for that, which is unfortunate, but it is something that needs to be put in there as well. And then we've also increased the requirements for some positions. So executive council, we're raising it to a 3.0 GPA, which still isn't super high, but we definitely think it's attainable for these students to achieve, and they should be held to a higher standard, we feel. Some other things that we're working on is setting up a specific process for elections. And so typically the way elections have gone in the past, they're rather sporadic, I guess, or unplanned. So they kind of just happen when they happen. And so they do happen all right before the school year ends, but we're setting up the last 2 weeks of March is specifically for the campaigning of the Executive Council. We then give them 2 weeks to vote and announce the results. And so that takes you to the first 2 weeks of April. Then the following two weeks of April, so the third and fourth week, are for the campaigning of the class officers. And then the first 2 weeks of May, you need to declare the class officers and hold the election. And so what this would do is we'd have all our positions for the proceeding year in place so that we could have a, essentially like a shadow meeting where each position would walk the other position through what their duties are. And so we're trying to kind of get that set up, and then also we're trying to make sure that clubs are more active, and so we're going through the list of clubs and all the accounts, seeing which ones are active, and requesting that they announce the president and vice president for the next year to us so that we know that they are active clubs for that next year. And then we will require their attendance at freshman orientation, just one representative at least, so that the incoming freshmen know that these clubs are available for them to join when they come to the high school. Also, lastly, I would like to present a message from the student body. And so you guys might have heard this quote before, but it's by Albert Einstein, and it goes, "If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." And the reason I bring this up is that it has been brought to our attention that we believe that each teacher has its own teaching style. And this is great because students are different. Some students are fishes and prefer to swim. Some are monkeys and prefer to climb trees. But what has been brought to our attention is that some of these teaching styles aren't working out for the students at Pullman High. And I don't mean this as in they're bad teachers or anything. We firmly believe that the hiring process is rigorous and that the teachers hired in the Pullman School District are excellent. But for some classes, math classes specifically, there is only one teacher available for that class. And while it's not in question whether it's a good teacher or not for these math classes, it's that the style doesn't work for some students, and as a result, they have kind of come to us and asked us to change this. And yes, there is an online option, so they could, instead of going to this teacher because the teaching style doesn't fit them, they could take it online. But as someone who has taken online classes, I took pre-calculus online over the summer before my junior year, and I'm a person that loves math, and it made me hate it. It was hard to get through. It was hard teaching myself. And so what we would like to see is if we could get 2 teachers for every math class so that if one teaching style does not work out for a certain student, they have the option to try the other teacher and see if that option would work better for them. Thank you for your time.
We appreciate
Thank you, Robbie.
Very complete report.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we'll move on to board reports, and I'll start down here with Director Everman.
I just wanted to commend the school district for allowing the public to utilize the school facilities on school days and after hours. I think that's something we probably should publicize more, and I don't know how to do that, especially maybe the community update or maybe on the website, all the facilities that are being used. But I think the public is largely unaware of how much the school district facilities are being used on a weekly basis. And I think I'd like to commend the school district for doing that. Yeah, so that's it.
All right. Thank you. Director Johansson?
Well, I just want to give a final report about basketball. Competed well and but lost both of their games, and I think it was a disappointment for the team. I think they thought that they would go a little bit further, but each time they ran into a really hot team, and they did. Their first loss was to the eventual state champions, Foss, and they were right with them until the fourth quarter, and so. It's always as it is in a tournament. What could have been wasn't. But congratulations to them for a wonderful season, coaches and assistant coaches and team. And my understanding is that the junior varsity and the freshman C squad team did very well also, and bodes well for seasons to come and so on. sharing, as I look outside my window, just overlooking our various facilities, and having gone to a meeting of, last week of District 6, or District 7 assigners, particularly the spring sports assigners of officials were really worried, and Russ Brown, who's the District 7 executive, was there, reported, this meeting was a week ago Tuesday, and at that time, Medical Lake, where he used to be the AD, still had 4 feet of snow on the baseball field and a corresponding amount on the soccer fields, which are right adjoining, so I don't imagine there was any significant difference in snow depth. And of course, the organizers of umpires and so on will just simply not have enough people if we're playing double headers for the whole month of April, 5 days a week and on weekends and so on. And right now, the Great Northern League is attempting to play all of the baseball games on weekends, so that there's no lost class time. The whole league schedule is being played either on Fridays, and I think Fridays and Saturdays, so that there's a minimal lack of class time, and instead of playing single games, they're playing all double headers. So if you lose a weekend, then that whole plan goes out the window, and you can't make it up the next weekend. So then Chris will be rescheduling in the middle of the week and so on. So we're really being hit by the weather, and I know it's affecting whether we can start on the new elementary school and so on and so forth. It's just it's something we're having to deal with, but everybody was putting their heads together as to how we could best handle it from a referee umpire standpoint and also from scheduling. So I just wanted to report that. So that's my report.
All right, thank you. Director Kinzer?
On the way into the building this evening, I did see that it looked like some of the baseball team were working out in the gymnasium, so that's because we got snow flying out there. Another thing I wanted to mention was at Sunnyside Elementary School, the PTO will be hosting and sponsoring a science fair coming up on March 23rd and 24th. And they are looking for volunteers to do judging and cleanups and setups. And so if somebody has time out there to work with that, please contact Autumn Swanson. And that information is on the Sunnyside website, so you can get it there, and they would certainly appreciate it. That completes my report.
All right, thank you. And I would like to report that you may have received in your mailbox the WASDA schedule of regional meetings, and our regional meeting is on May 4th, which is also the day of a work session, as well as the
That's right.
WASDA diversity, equity. Yeah, so I think we need to decide as a board whether to cancel the work session to attend the WASDA regional meeting, or what is the preference of the board?
It's also in Freeman.
Yes, it is in Freeman.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's very doable in terms of distance.
Yeah.
I would suggest that we have the workshop on our other off Wednesday in May, and then attend the regional meeting. I think it's important that we have representatives there.
I think it's important that we have representatives there too. I usually cannot meet on the third
Oh, that's right.
Wednesday of the month. But if there's a fifth Wednesday in April, I'm trying to determine. There is not. Okay.
No, May has 5.
Oh, May has 5. So we will be in touch.
Maybe on the fifth Wednesday in April.
There
I mean,
wasn't.
May.
Yeah, so we'll be in touch. I agree.
Because this would be our May workshop, right? That we're proposing.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I do think it is good to support the WASDA regional meetings. So.
I agree as well, but representation doesn't mean 5 of us have to go. It could mean 1 or 2 attend.
It does.
So representation of the WAS, I think, is important, but
Ideally 3, because the way they evaluate it
okay,
later.
I see. So there might be some, okay,
Ideally, if we could have
ideally.
3 on one there. Yeah. So. Okay, I'll be in touch about that, and that is all I have to report. So let's move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Maxwell?
Thank you very much. A couple of announcements. Been a very, very busy few weeks, and with spring just starting with sports, it's ramping up. So a couple things I'll just mention quickly. The transition fair for our special education and 504 students will be held March 23rd, Colfax High School. That's March 23rd, Colfax High School. And this is designed...
Thank you. I was
Sorry.
going to ask you to say what that was, because I didn't.
Sure.
Okay.
This is designed to work on transitioning and also what resources are available for students that primarily are transitioning from high school into independent living or supported living or independent employment or supported employment, and also designed for middle school students and their families to get an idea of what resources are available, talk with leading experts in the field. It's an annual event that last year we hosted, this year Colfax hosts, next year we'll host, so it's a great community event, and we're really just trying to make sure that people are aware. Teachers have been aware, and also this year, actually Megan Atani is doing a training for teachers from 5:30 to 6:30 on transitioning high school students from high school into independent living and work. And so she'll be going over training with clock hours offered for teachers. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, tonight you may have seen a group of students in the upper commons here. That is the first meeting of the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And so several students were there, and parents and representatives from WSU's chapter. And so again, that was their first meeting, and this came up as a club activity, I think, a couple weeks ago. So I included their agenda in your folder that I'll pass down, so you can kind of get a look at that. Also, the WASDA Spring Regional Meeting, please let Shannon know if you want to attend, and so that's also in the folder. Also, it's getting that time of year where it's coming up on retiree appreciation and wishes to recognize retired school employees, so there's a letter in there for you to take a look at. Also, there are 2 different letters from Lincoln Middle School. I'm assuming they are parents of students, or actually these may be students, I'm sorry, who are interested in revitalizing the wood shop and I believe home economics. So I'll pass those letters for your review. And the last item in this particular folder for you is just some information on the Quan Field donation that is being submitted to PEF and was voted to be accepted by PAF. So there's a little background information on that donation combined with some city and school district funds to address Quan Field. And so I want to make sure you had some background information in case somebody approached you about that, so you're aware. So quite a bit of little information in the folder tonight, so enjoy.
Thank you.
Quick construction update. PHS, the old Mass Science building is gone, if you haven't been in the back, and they're working on the water retention swale, and soon, hopefully, depending if it ever quits snowing or raining, maybe some asphalt work for the rest of the parking lot. A lot of painting, possibly some prep work on the last part of the road around the stadium, the asphalt up here, will be done during spring break. Also doing probably some testing, so we need to do a pressurized test of the building, which requires no people in and out of the building for a day. So we'll be sending some notices to staff and athletic coaches about what day that will happen. But spring break will be very, very busy here at the high school, trying to capture that time to get a lot of painting done inside, outside work started. Of course, a lot of that's going to be dependent on weather. So just to let you know. Kamiak Elementary School, I want to direct your attention to the front. There is a board that Shannon designed, and each of the schools in our district have that display board for our public. It may not be the exact rendering of that school or floor plan, but it is certainly close. So I wanted to call that to your attention so you're aware. Really not much news to report on Kamiak due to the weather. We haven't been able to do any grading, and we are working with the design team on possibly some square footage savings, but I'll talk about that later. So with that, I think I've said enough.
Okay,
So
thank you very much. And would you like to
Yes.
introduce? Okay.
So next up is our Special Education Service Report, and we have Assistant Director of Special Services, Megan Atani, here to present.
Good evening, you guys. Glad to be here.
And I believe she.
I was going to say, I gave you guys the handout, but Bob's also going to pull it up there. So, special education and service reporting, an exciting time for Pullman, I think. I'm really excited to be in this position for Pullman schools, to really center on this group of students that we know are at-risk learners, and addressing those needs, not just of the students, but also then of our teachers and our programs. So, kind of looking at the top there, I wanted to start with enrollment, because you can see that over time, that number continues to grow. That 321 is where we are as of yesterday. As of today, we had 3 more students enroll. So that number continues to grow, and obviously we need to address the needs of those learners. But just to give you a picture, we ended last year at 327. And I anticipate through student intervention teams and our own eligibility process here in Pullman, we're obviously going to end this year at an even higher number than last. I don't anticipate those numbers going down over time. As you all know, Pullman continues to grow. And so this is a population of students that will continue to grow as well. One number I wanted to just bring to your attention is that 56 at Jefferson Elementary School. Obviously, that's a very high caseload for one teacher there, and I'm going to talk about that later on when we talk about goals for programming. That second piece is program budget and expenditures. The state and the federal numbers are what bring you to the total there. The birth to 3 numbers, though, were included because birth to 3 is a unique population of students that we're responsible for partnering with the local lead agency here in town, which is currently Boost Collaborative. But you can see, I wanted to include that so you could see the type, though, of financial obligation that's needed in regards to birth to 3. We're responsible for rolling that money down to them. So, I wanted to just include that because I think you'll hear across the state, there's a lot of action right now around early intervention and birth to 3 and the partnership between school districts and local lead agencies. So that could change in the future, and it's not necessarily in our considerations when we're talking about Part B programming, which is that age group of students who are 3 to 21. So that number's there, but I do note that it's not included in that total number. As well as that expenditure number for the remainder of this year, obviously we still have that encumbrant amount that we need to consider. I smiled, Diane's helped me, obviously, with my budgeting. But that idea of salaries and benefits are still going to have to come out of there, as well as we have some temporary classified staff that we've put in place to meet the needs of these kids as they continue to come in. Obviously, if someone coming in March on a Thursday, it's our responsibility to get them in programming as in a timely manner, and I'm proud to say Pullman moves very quickly on that. Because obviously we want to see students in schools. So as we get to know students, sometimes they require temporary supports while we find out how our programs can fit their needs. Under the performance, that's all SBAC scores and proficiency levels for students in 3 through 11th grade. That continues to be an area of growth for us that we examine and look at. I can say this year, I think we're centering on our curriculum and our use of curriculum for students with special needs and special education programming, and how that matches up to the standards to help students be more successful on the SBAC specifically. But underneath that data is our WA-AIM district performance rates, and that's the alternative assessment for students with significant special needs. It's 1% of our population, but really excited and proud to say that we have high percentage of proficiency rates for those students. So that's something definitely to be celebrated for our programming. I think that speaks to the quality of our staff as well. So through, and another example of what we're doing in the curriculum area for the SBAC proficiency scores is I'm participating in gathering information around that Read 180, Math 180 data and information, and seeing how are students being successful, and hopefully we're going to see that correlation. And if we're seeing a correlation between curriculum and increased scores, how can we maybe increase that availability?
So I understand what SBAC is. Can you explain, like, maybe how 6th grade math compares to like a WA-AIM?
Yeah, so the WA-AIM is built off of extensions from the standards, from Common Core standards. So they looked at those standards and they made them into 3 complexity areas: most complex, less complex, and then least complex. And so they really tried to break that down and say, what would that look like for students with significant cognitive impact, verbal impact, or language impairments, and just how would they access those Common Core standards. And actually, our own Dr. Rena Mink sat on the state board for those extension criteria.
Okay.
So they continue to expand that as well, I will say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have to see it or something.
Yeah, I'd be happy to share that with you.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
The second sheet here is not included in your information, and just as regards to our teaching population right now, last year we didn't have anyone who was necessarily out of that highly qualified certification. This year we have 1.5 teachers or FTE in that area, but they continue to also go to school to try to get their certificates. Shortages of teachers, I know you guys know, is an issue nationally. Shortages around special education teachers is even greater. So we work really hard to recruit those staff members, and again, you'll see later on that's a goal we have as a district, obviously, and I think this year is actually going really well. We have more applicants in special education than we've had in previous years, so that's really exciting, and to see that already here in March is even more exciting. So I'm excited about that, but you can see that obviously our teaching population and our need for classified staff continue to grow with the population of students that we're serving. And then that last piece are what are some of our district goals and strategies. Again, this has been new, but I've been trying to really include our special education staff around this. Where would they like to go with programming? What would they like to see around the leadership that I can provide for them? And one of the biggest goals we have this year is the special education manual. Something that includes all of our policies and procedures, our expectations around special education, what that looks like at schools, so we can also calibrate programming across our 3 elementary schools. Obviously, it's easier for our 2 teachers at Lincoln to collaborate together, but at the same time, it would be really great to have a manual to hand to a new teacher as they come in. So that they can do that. I've enlisted the help of Eric Hines to help me with that manual, and he's taking the components of that or the sections of that, and we're going to also break that down for administrators. What is the important information in that area that an administrator would need to know and be able to help guide that programming within their own school building? So we're also trying to really increase that capacity at the school level to address some of those special education needs. So that has been a large project. We continue to work on it. I also added that I've brought it to the teachers and to the staff for their input. So I started with a draft, and I've gained their insights into what are the procedures that we currently use. Let's make sure our practice matches our policies and procedures. The second piece is that maintaining fiscal responsibility. Special education right now is doing well, and that's great because we need that to be able to pick up the 3 students that just enrolled with us this last Thursday. So it feels nice to say that I continue to search for a special education teacher right now for Jefferson to hopefully be brought in to help with that 56, tying it back to that enrollment number, to help with that number of students at that local elementary school. And I feel good that I know that that fiscal responsibility piece wouldn't make that, wouldn't change the availability of programming or services for anyone, and we'd be able to add that. That next piece is always working within the state and federal compliance indicators. Pullman's had a reputation, and we're going to maintain the reputation of meeting those requirements under all those indicators. I think a large one is that indicator 13, which is transitioning students in secondary, and then another main indicator is our birth to 3 population coming into school district, and our compliance level there needs to be at 100%, and we've been able to get that, so that's exciting. Filling job openings. It is a big goal that I think we all have, but it takes some active effort. So I've been going up to WSU. We've spoken to classes. Next week, Dr. Kramer and I are going to Spokane to the Gonzaga Job Fair, as well as attached to Spokane's job fair. But I think currently we have 6 applicants already for our next positions, and that's more than I think we've had
in 3 years combined.
So, all right, that feels good. And then that last goal is always around professional development. Talking again to our staff, what are those areas that they feel they need to look at and maybe gain some professional development in. Currently for our teachers, I think it's around social emotional skills and behaviors for students. One of those pieces is that right response training, which is a de-escalation training that we are able to provide for all of our special education staff and many general education staff as well. I say tailored collaboration day topics because I've put that emphasis back to the staff to say, what do you want to work on those collaboration days, and make sure it's targeting that special education population. I've currently applied for an OSPI grant for professional development for paraprofessionals, and we're waiting any day for the announcement around that. That would be a really exciting opportunity and availability for our specific para population, and not just in special education, but addressing para professional development across the board. So our title staff, our ELD, our office support people, who are usually those frontline individuals that are addressing kids' needs. And then the last one was this year I was able to provide some opportunities for related service personnel to obtain some professional development. So our current 3 speech and language pathologists have all chosen a pathway for professional development. One's going to a conference, and the 2 others are doing 2 different trainings online, which then they're going to bring back, of course, to Collaboration Day and share that information together. As well as our occupational therapists recommended some for our CODA, which is a certified occupational therapist assistant, and she's going to be able to attain those classes online as well, and then which just fuels, of course, their Collaboration Day planning and that sharing. So those are some big goals I think we have in special education this year. I already am looking ahead to next year and what I'd like to achieve, but realizing what can we get done in 1 year, and I think this is a really good place to start for us. So, any questions?
Megan, you had identified Jefferson with the 56 students there.
Yeah.
What about the other schools that have equal or just about the same number?
At Franklin, we currently have 2 special education staff members. At Sunnyside, we have Allison Kerner, who stepped up to that position, and I'm trying to provide her a lot of guidance and support around that. At Lincoln, we have 2 special education teachers, and at the high school, we have 3. So most schools are at a 2 ratio right now. And that number, I will say, also includes speech-only students. So some of those students are served by our speech pathologists. And this year, we were able to add Last year, I think we were at 2.5. This year, we're at 3.0. So hopefully that has been able to help alleviate some of that need as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
I really appreciated that. Okay. Anything else?
That's it for my report.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. To expedite business at a board meeting, the board approves the use of a consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item which appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the consent agenda by a member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. And tonight's consent agenda consists of minutes, a budget status report, personnel report, overnight field trip request, transfer requests, warrants, professional personal services report, and ASB fundraisers. I would consider,
I would like to pull the personnel report and ask that we vote on everything else as by procedure and move the discussion of the personnel report to closed session because it does involve personnel as is allowed.
okay, is there a second?
Second?
We don't need a motion on that, they can just pull it.
Oh, okay.
It's automatic, then we,
One of the board members can pull it.
and then we just go ahead and vote on the rest of the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a motion to remove the rest of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the consent agenda is approved. Next, we have action items. And our first action item is enrollment projections. And for this, we have Diane Hodge, our finance manager.
So at the last board meeting, we reviewed and discussed our enrollment projections. And as a reminder, our enrollment projections drive our estimated apportionment funding for budget. So we're asking the board to approve 2,770 FTE for the 2017-18 fiscal year for budget construction.
All right, does anyone have any follow-up questions for Diane?
No, it was extremely well
Pretty
presented.
thorough presentation.
I move approval of the enrollment projections for 2017-18.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, these enrollment projections are approved. Next, we have policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. Superintendent Maxwell.
Yes, that's me. So let me pull this up for you. So this is a follow-up from our previous discussion. This is updating this policy to be in alignment with WASDA's recommendations. The main changes were in the first paragraph, focusing on the requirement that we need to inform parents of what our policy is, and in a language that is makes it the information available to them. The second major addition, which is a one sentence, is really staff will keep a record of absence and tardiness, including a record of excused statements submitted by parent, guardian, or in certain cases, students, to document a student's excused absence. That's something that is current practice. This is just putting it in as a WASDA recommendation. And the rest of it was just relettering, numbering, and cross-references, and then updating the legal references and management resources. So fairly minor adjustments to this particular policy.
That undoubtedly will change, so,
It probably will. Stay tuned.
yep. All right. Is there a motion regarding policy 3122?
Madam Chairman, I would move that we approve the revisions to policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences as presented.
Second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that is approved. Next, we have Resolution 161706, Declaration of Surplus Bus. I'm going to call upon Joe Thornton, Executive Director of Operations.
We have a bus that's no longer operational. The cost to repair it is much more than the value of the bus. Following state procedures, we have to surplus it and make it available to sale for other school districts. Because it's not operational, nobody will buy it, but we have to follow the process. So we're requesting that we declare that surplus merchandise or surplus items and put that out for sale to other school districts.
All right, does anyone have any questions?
No, it's so essentially sold for scrap?
Well, nobody will pay for it for scrap. We have, if we get to the point where nobody buys it, we have somebody who's willing to take it off our hands for scrap. So it'll be a neutral, a no-cost transaction. And that's a place in Lewiston. If we were to try to get rid of it in Spokane, it would cost us money to do so.
I move approval of Resolution 161706, Declaration of Surplus Bus.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the resolution passes. Moving next, we have new PHS CTE courses, and this is presented by Roberta Kramer, our Assistant Superintendent.
In follow-up to the last board meeting, when we brought for discussion 6 courses, we're bringing these tonight in 2 separate categories. The first being CTE courses, and those being Advanced Video Production, Leadership 2, and Sports Medicine 1.
Are there any questions for Roberta?
No, I liked the explanation that we had at the last meeting, and then some of it was reviewed, I saw in the CAC, and with, again, due path, redone, so to speak, or re-endorsed by the CAC, so that's a very complete discussion and presentation, it seemed.
And thank you for addressing the link between the other biology class.
I think that it helped to clarify it for all of us.
Good.
So I think that was valuable. Yes.
Any further comments or discussion?
I move approval of the new PHS CTE courses.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the CTE courses are approved. And next, the AP courses.
Let me pull it up just a second here, sorry. There you go.
So as we presented at the last board meeting, we would ask that the board approve 3 new AP courses for Pullman High School: AP Chemistry, AP European History, and AP French. Questions?
Does it appear that we're going to be able to add all these classes with existing staffing, or will we be adding some?
The only existing staffing could have been in the previous CTE courses around sports medicine, but otherwise, these are all within existing staffing.
Okay.
On someone's transcript, are they actually enrolled in a class called AP Chemistry?
Yes.
Okay. But then whether they get credit depends on how they do on the exam.
Exactly,
Okay.
yes.
And the exam grade is separate from a letter grade for grade point average and so on. So somebody might get an A in AP chemistry and yet not pass the, or not even take the exam.
True, yes, that could happen where they don't pass the exam, or they might not meet the requirements of a particular score to get credit. The difference, I think, is that there's more that goes into a grade for a class than perhaps what might be considered on the test.
That's understandable. Okay, I would move approval of the AP classes as presented,
Second.
All
if
right.
you're ready.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, the AP classes are also approved. Next, we have our single discussion item tonight, which is the LMS Booster Club donation. Dr. Maxwell.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to present tonight the LMS Booster Club donation. This is an annual fundraiser. They did a little differently this year rather than selling magazines and such. Basically, they just asked for straight donations. And they received $7,474.33 that they would like to help fund Lincoln Middle School ASB programs and clubs. All donations, of course, as you know, that exceed $5,000 must be approved and accepted by the board. I did have a conversation with Principal Grow as to if any of the $7,474.33 had been specifically identified for a specific activity or club. And at this point, there have been no specified directions for where the money would go. It would go into a general fund, and then has clubs or activities needed funds, they would apply to that general fund for whatever funds they need for their activities or club.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions about the Lincoln Middle School Booster Club donation?
No, we always certainly appreciate
Yeah.
contributions of that type, and it's pretty good.
I certainly appreciate that fundraising model as well.
I do too, as a parent. I much prefer, I've had enough cookie dough in my day and wrapping paper.
Yeah.
I still have probably enough wrapping paper to last many,
You
many
Yep.
years.
brought it with you from the west side.
I did, actually, yes, so.
Some of us probably
Most expensive wrapping
inappropriate to
paper
wrap
I've ever
presents on
had.
the west, on the east side, but
Yeah, I do wonder how they got the 33 cents, but who knows?
Didn't ask that.
Penny Drive.
May have been a penny drive,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe. All right. Okay, we do have a few informational items that will not be discussed here, but also in your packet is the usual administrative requirements update, current enrollment standing at 2740, the board calendar, and an updated procedure for the highly capable programs. So next, if there are no objections, we will move into our executive or closed session. And about how long, because we will need to take action on the remaining, the item that was pulled from the consent agenda.
I think it'll be probably, for the personnel report, probably 10 minutes.
Okay, so,
And then we would
Then we
Come
would
back.
come back,
vote
vote,
and
and
then.
then go back into close an
in closed
executive
session.
session.
okay. So,
If there's no objections.
if there are no objections, we will recess into this closed session. Then we will come out of the closed session to take an action, a vote, but then we will recess again. So stick around if you're interested in the vote.
So, yes, please.